All right, so there is a major controversy in the internet guitar community right now, and for like the last month or so. And it reportedly involves plagiarism, theft, both real and intellectual, lies, and, well, just downright. It's been debated, discussed, and analyzed by far more talented musicians than myself, and I am coming at this not just as a guitarist, but as a professional stand-up comedian who also happens to play guitar in his comedy act, live, on stage, and in front of people. So, I'm going to look at the Giacomo Turra situation on a special episode of Comedy on 11. Right off the bat, my name is Thom Tran. I'm a stand-up comedian here in Los Angeles. I tour around the world. I'm also a guitarist and musician for people who have never seen this channel before and never heard this podcast before. Normally, I would have a comedian friend on to talk about comedy and music, and I'd probably have a guitarist friend on to talk through this very specific topic, but maybe I'll do that in the future. But I'm going to be on the road a lot the next few weeks, and scheduling is a messy beast, and this whole thing is blown up. So I really wanted to sit down and do this before I go on the road. So let's just start with the facts in the case, as reported by seemingly every guitar influencer on the planet. There is an internet guitarist from Italy by the name of Giacomo Turra, who has a following of over 1 million subscribers across platforms like Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, with Instagram being his largest reach. I think he's got like 700,000 subscribers or something. And in April of 2025, just a month ago as of this recording, another YouTuber, musician and bassist by the name of Danny Spanko, released a video highlighting accusations that Turra had been stealing other people's music and passing it off as his own. And that is when the shit hit the fan. I will give you a brief rundown on all the accusations, but you should really watch the video by Danny and Rick Beato and an amazing, like, nearly hour-long video by Adam Neely that go in depth into the whole situation. But here are the alleged crimes that Giacomo Turra has been purported to have committed. He allegedly plagiarized performances by other lesser-known or lesser-followed guitarists on the internet. He passed them off as his own, even though most of those performances were improvised by the actual guitarist. He didn't properly give credit to the original artist, at least not until he was called out about it later. He would then message these people and beg them to not release this information. Then he would allegedly transcribe these performances and sell the transcriptions to other people, I'm assuming without giving any money to the musicians that he already didn't give credit to. And then it's being alleged that of all his content, it isn't just mimed, which is a whole nother thing that we are going to get into, which is one of the reasons I want to do this video, but that he can't actually play what he was miming. It's alleged that he slowed down the performances while he was recording them and then sped them up to what would be considered normal or an impressive speed. This was kind of detailed by Rick Beato, who said that during an interview with Turra, Rick realized that he can't actually play well enough, and that Rick couldn't release the video on his, being Rick's, channel. And again, I'll link the video to that in the description. Those are the big three that he's being accused of. In addition to that, there are accusations that Turra accepted expensive guitars from luthiers and then sold them to other people without fulfilling the agreement that was made with the luthier that gave him this supposedly expensive guitar, essentially stealing the instrument. I think what happened was this luthier said, "Let me make you a custom guitar, do a handful of videos," I don't think it was 2 or 3 videos or something about it, and that'll be payment for the video. So reportedly, Turra did a video, not really the 2 or 3 or however many that the luthier asked him to do, and then he sold it. And then this luthier saw somebody else playing this one-of-a-kind guitar that he had made for Giacomo Turra, and that's when that whole mess started. And there are countless first-hand accounts from other internet musicians who say he was just a dick, which is not a crime. Being a dick is not a crime, but don't be a dick. That's Will Wheaton's #1 rule. Don't be a dick. Will Wheaton, who I met at a thing recently. Neither here nor there. But, like he would tell other internet musicians that he would collaborate with them on videos or musical performances, and then at the last minute say, hey, I can't make it, I don't feel good, I'm sick, or whatever, and then post a video from NAMM of him jamming and seemingly being just fine. And then that would cost this other person money because they had to rent out a studio, and just a dick move. And again, don't be dick. Being a dick's not a crime. Just don't do it. Just don't be a dick. So why am I doing this video and this special episode of Comedy on 11? Like, I don't have any skin in this game. He's never stolen anything from me. I am not a good enough musician for anyone to steal anything from. I'm a good comedian. I'm a really good comedian musician. I'm not a good enough guitarist for anybody to steal anything from me. And quite frankly, I'd never heard of him until all this popped up. I didn't know Giacomo Turra's name until a month ago, and not because I'm better than him or anything like that. It's not in my wheelhouse. I guess he's allegedly like a neo-progressive jazz musician, but he's allegedly stole all this stuff from other people. And I keep saying allegedly because a couple of reasons. I was a journalist for a good deal of my life. I went to school for broadcast journalism. I was a journalist in the Army. I was a journalist until, a year ago in Los Angeles on a major news station. Like, I was a professional journalist. So I say allegedly until people can prove this in a court of law. I know it's been proven in the court of public opinion, and people have put up side-by-side videos of him playing line for line, lick for lick, note for note, other people's stuff. Those are the videos I've seen. I haven't gone back and watched them frame by frame, side by side for myself. So legally, something I learned in college and as a journalist, allegedly, until somebody can, prove it in a court of law, I suppose. But I feel like having your endorsement deals pulled, having, big companies who worked with you just pull all their content and your content off their website, I feel like that's a pretty solid indictment. However, again, as a journalist, as somebody who, as a professional, objective journalist, I have to say allegedly until this is proven in a court of law. Like I said, far more talented and in-depth internet musicians and guitarists have gone in depth into this, and you can take that as proof as you'd like. I'm gonna legally say allegedly until otherwise. Okay. So again, why am I doing this? I have no skin in the game. I have just under 10,000 subscribers, and that was mostly because of a stand-up comedy clip that I put up a couple of weeks ago. I'm not a neo-progressive jazz musician. I'm a 80s shred rocker guy who plays guitar when he does stand-up comedy. So why am I doing this? Well, I was watching all of these videos the other day, and I was watching the analysis, and I was watching other people's takes on these and their firsthand accounts of this, and I started falling down the rabbit hole of other internet musicians and internet comedians, and then seeing a lot of overlapping in the arguments going on about everything. And I am currently in pre-production on my comedy music album that I've been working on the material for a year and a half now. And I'm planning to record a live performance of both the audio album and the videos and of the live performances and music videos for some of these songs. We're actually planning on releasing singles. And it made me look at the landscape of the industry, both comedy and music. And if for nothing else, I want to talk this out loud to myself and figure out what the landscape is, and maybe focus on how I want to record my album. And I'm doing this as a podcast and as a YouTube video, because if I just talk to myself in the car, or on the street, or at the gym, and I look like I'm arguing with myself, I would look insane. But if I record this and I put it on the internet, then it's content. And then I'm not as crazy as I would seem for arguing these things out in my head out loud to people. And then I can write this whole thing off. I can justify the switcher that I bought for this. So now let's get to the unscripted part of this episode. Those were all the talking points that I'd written down about this, just to familiarize everybody with this Giacomo Turra situation and talk through the predicament of Giacomo Turra and comedy and how those two things kind of mix. And again, this is mostly for myself, but I want people to understand maybe why, when I make the decision I make about my album, why I'm going to make the decision. And to be quite frank, I don't know what that decision is right now. Like I'm bopping back and forth between what I think I want to do, what I can afford to do, because I'm doing this myself, and what the landscape of, again, the industry, both comedy and music are, and how that's going to affect how I do this. Let's start with a couple of the things. Plagiarism and theft, what Turra is alleged to have done. Again, I'm just going to say alleged because, yeah, court of law, sue, lawsuits, all that jazz. He's accused of taking other people's improvised music and passing that off as himself. Is that wrong? Hell yeah, it's wrong. Absolutely, it's wrong. That's the kind of shit that gets you punched in a comedy club. I played cover bands for the longest time. My last band was a cover band. We never passed off what we were doing as our own thing. It was like, we play Pour Some Sugar on Me, you know it's Def Leppard. We play Don't Stop Believin', you know it's Journey. As a comedian, plagiarism and theft, that's a no-go. That is a showstopper. There's an old anecdote about, I think it was Paul Rodriguez, who confronted a comic who allegedly stole a joke from him and had him hand on his throat, pushed up against the wall at a comedy club and said, I will beat the ever-living crap out of you if you do this again. I mean, the whole Joe Rogan, Carlos Mencia situation was theft and plagiarism. It's a no-go. It's verboten. Does it happen? Yeah, it happens. But I think when it comes to plagiarism in comedy, the difference with music is, as a musician, I can be influenced by other musicians. Most musicians are influenced by other musicians. Like, I play the way I play because I'm a fan of Prince. I love Prince. I'm a fan of Zakk Wylde. And if I move my chair a little bit, Eddie Van Halen. I'm influenced by those musicians and those guitarists. And that comes out in my music. I can't play a song lick for lick that Stevie Ray Vaughan did or Eric Clapton did and go, that's mine. You know? In music, you can be inspired by. And there are only 12 notes. You know? They're in different octaves and different keys. And how you arrange those notes in music is what makes you unique as a musician. And when you take that as a guitarist or a musician and pass it off as your own work, you take somebody else's stuff. If you do it in little chunks, it's harder to be accused of that. But what Giacomo Turra did, allegedly, I keep saying allegedly, there's video of him doing it. Lick for lick, note for note, entire compositions of other musicians that he passed off as his own. He's allegedly went back like a decade. You know, he took a video from a guy that got put up in 2013 and transcribed it and played it and passed it off as his own. And I think when this other musician confronted him about it, his answer was, "Oh, I didn't think you were on Instagram." That's not the right answer. That is the wrong answer. That is straight up theft. That is wrong in every, like, sorry I was banging your wife. I didn't think you were going to be home. That's the equivalent. That's what that is. As a comedian, we have something called parallel lines of thought. It is not unheard of in the comedy community for two people on two opposite sides of the planet around the same time to come up with a premise for a joke and do nearly the identical thing. Especially if you're friends with a comedian and you both think alike and you have the same points of view and you have the same artistic idea about comedy. Yes, absolutely. That is absolutely conceivable. I think it was Greg Giraldo, who will forever be one of my favorite comedians, God rest his soul. And I think it was Dave Attell, and they were good friends. Dave's still with us. Greg is not. And I think I saw an interview where Greg was talking about, you know, like him and Dave came up with a similar joke, similar concept, a similar idea for a joke. And they both did it independent of each other. They didn't steal it from each other. They weren't note for note, word for word, the same joke, but the premise was the same and the punchline was the same. And I think because they were friends, I think they came to the conclusion of like, whoever's joke is better, or usually the rule, and it's a shitty rule, but, you know, within the comedy community, it's like whoever gets the joke on TV, it's their joke, which is, it's a terrible, terrible rule. You know, I heard stories of Robin Williams stealing jokes from comics, like, or more often seeing a joke he liked and then buying it from a comic. Like I heard a story, and this was before my time, but like Robin Williams was at the Comedy Store allegedly, and he saw a comic do a joke, and he really liked it, and he walked up to that comic and wrote a check for I think it was like $2,000 or something, which, you know, in the 80s or 90s, whenever this happened, was a lot of money. It's still a lot of money, but then it was a lot of money for a struggling comedian, especially. And Robin just essentially said, "Hey, listen, you can take this money and lose the joke, or you're going to lose the joke because I'm going to do it tomorrow on whatever, the Tonight Show or the Late Show or whatever it was." And that's the story I heard. Plagiarism happens in comedy. And I think for me as a musician, my jokes are like my music, where they're so personal to me. They're the thing I wrote, because I'm not a current affairs topic. I'm not a comic. I'm not a news comic like Josh Johnson, who's amazing. And if you don't know Josh Johnson as a comedian, go watch him. Amazing, like the most prolific comedian I have ever seen, but also outstanding and hilarious. And if I hate that man for any reason at all, it's because I have a gray zip-up hoodie that I love, that I would love to wear on stage, but I can't because Josh has cornered the market on that. And he owns that look. He owns that look, and quite frankly, he looks better than me in it anyway. But Josh Johnson, if you haven't seen Josh Johnson, amazing. But Josh is so good, and he's a writer on the Daily Show on Comedy Central, which is probably why he's so good. So hyper-focused on a joke and on news events, and that's where he gets his material from. Not me. My stuff is about, you know, being a nerd, being a musician, getting divorced, being in the army, whatever. Jokes are personal to me, and I think with music, especially when it's a pre-written composition. It's personal to us. When you're improvising, and I feel like, you know, the one guitarist that Turra stole from even said, like, I didn't even remember. He said, it sounded familiar. I had to go back to 2013 and listen to a clip that he had done, that, you know, that guitarist had done, but it's personal. Bottom line, plagiarism happens in both art forms, comedy and music. And in both, absolutely verboten. It's wrong. Theft is wrong. Passing off an idea as your own in music or comedy is wrong. That's the thing with music as opposed to comedy. I can be in a cover band. I've been in a cover band. Most of my life was playing in cover bands. I am playing other people's music, either as they intended it to be played or with a little Thom Tran flair, which is really just Eddie Van Halen flair. But we never passed it off as our own. You know, cover bands are cover bands. We're there to play the other people's hits. There are no cover band comedians. You can't be a cover band comedian. Because the thing with comedy is, it's from the mind and the brain and the experience of the comedian, the writer, the person who's presenting it. Yes, there are comics who have writers. Eddie Murphy had writers. You know, Paul Mooney wrote for Eddie Murphy. Any awards show that you see has writers. My friends are writers on these shows. So yeah, but they're writing for a person. They're writing for them in their voice. It's just like being a writer on a TV show. You have the showrunner, the person who's running the show, you know, the overall theme and premise and storyline of the show, and you have other staff writers come in and write in their voice. Bottom line, there are no cover band comedians. You can't be a cover band comedian. So theft, wrong. It's just wrong in both, okay? And then the selling of the tabs, come on. You're taking someone else's work and you're writing it down and you're selling it to other people. Now, this is going to date myself, but Cherry Hill. Wait, that's a city in New Jersey. I think it was Cherry Music, Cherry Books, something. It was the company that used to do guitar tabs and songbooks and stuff like that. That's different. That's a whole publishing thing. But you know, rights go to whoever, and then those people get to publish, so they have the right to do it. That would be as if I compiled a book of jokes by Eddie Murphy, Dave Chappelle, Dave Attell, Greg Giraldo, Jeff Foxworthy, Seinfeld, and put them in a book and sold them to somebody else and said, hey, these are my jokes. It's wrong. And illegal? In music, it's illegal if you own the copyright. You can get sued for that. 100% get sued for that. Comedy, we don't have that. I guess legally I could do it. There's no copyright on that. You can't copyright a joke. Which sucks as comedians. That you can't copyright your IP, your intellectual property. You can't. But Turra was doing that. He took other people's music, allegedly, and transcribed it and sold it to other people without giving the original composer credit or money. So there's that. And I think what the biggest controversy is, so those two are no-brainers, just no-brainers. They're wrong and illegal in some cases. But I think what a lot of people have been, focusing on is the fact that, Adam Neely, his 52-minute long video is really good. It goes like really in depth into this and the morality of it all, but not being good enough in real life to do the thing that you are pretending to do on the internet. I think that's what a lot of people are getting upset about. It's the allegation that he's playing these licks, he's playing these lines, slowed down, and then speeding them up in post and syncing them along with the video to make it look like he can actually play those licks. And when Rick Beato said, again, I'm paraphrasing, he wasn't good enough to play the video, it wasn't good enough that Rick could post it. That's one of the things that people are getting upset about, is because he is pretending and he's making his fan base and his followers believe that he's this amazing guitarist when the reality is he is not. The reality is he's playing it slowly and making people believe that he's the shredder that he isn't. And that point, I think, more than anything, is why I wanted to do this video. That is what links into my whole I'm recording an album situation. Because miming happens. Miming happens all the time. I remember the first time, I moved out to LA in 2008 and I was just doing whatever acting work I could to pay bills. And I did a music video for, God, what was the name of the band? I want to say Paramore, maybe, I think. I don't know. I could be wrong. It was a long time ago. And even though I knew miming was a thing, even though I knew, they didn't really play their instruments on American Bandstand or Saturday Night Live, or even, hell, Whitney Houston's 1991 Super Bowl performance of the national anthem, which still a sticking point in my heart because that was the year the Bills lost to the Giants and I'm from Buffalo. Not bitter about that. Those are all pre-recorded. They're mimed because of technical issues and requirements for, broadcast quality. Being on that music video was the first time I was like, oh, this is fake. I knew it, like objectively, I knew it in my head. I was like, oh no, they don't really play their music videos while people are running around with, smoke bombs exploding and guys in black costumes or black uniforms running around with batons or whatever. That's the first time I experienced it, because it was before the internet boom of internet guitarists and blah, 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 blah. So miming happens. And I think the part that people are upset about mostly is that he's miming, but not to his actual skill set. He's not actually good enough to what he's portraying himself to be, what he's making people believe that he is. When I do episodes of The Story Behind the Strings, I'm playing, God, if I were a lesser person, I would probably mime what I'm doing in these videos because it would make production so much easier and faster for sure. But also, I'm not that good. In every single one of my Story Behind the Strings videos is a joke about how crap I am as a guitarist. I'm a mediocre guitarist at best. I'm a great comedian, funny writer, good musical comedy. Mediocre guitarist at best. So I think what most people are upset about is that he is pretending like he's good enough when he's not. Which brings me again to this overlap in comedy where you have people doing comedy on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. And there's this culture of crowd work. And if you don't know what crowd work is, it's when a comic gets on stage and talks to an audience and he banters back and forth, he or she banter back and forth, and they make some comedy happen in that interaction. Some people are really good at this. My buddy Ian Bagg, one of the best crowd work comics on the planet. But he is also one of the funniest writers I have ever met. And he posts crowd work stuff because it's natural, it happens. It's in the moment, it's this lightning in a bottle that's happening at the club on that night with this specific particular group of people. And it's not his material, it's not pre-written jokes, because he has pre-written jokes, he's got material, he's a phenomenal comedian. But then you have just this cohort of comedians who see that and they think that's the whole thing. So it's kind of, and then, you know, they get famous because of a 7-second clip or 15-second clip, whatever. And then you have to get them in front of a group of people for an hour that they have to make a laugh for an hour, and they can't. And for some reason, there's not that same anger in the comedy community. At least not as vocal as people have been with the Giacomo Turra thing, you know? I see it all the time. These younger and newer comics who get famous because of a thing that pops on the internet for 7 or 15 seconds or 5 minutes or whatever, and then they have to perform for an hour, and they can't. But unlike music, where, you know, so I think one of the things Danny Spanko, who's the bassist, the musician, the guitarist, the video content creator who brought this whole thing to life, one of the things he did was he showed a live performance of Giacomo Turra playing with his band, and it was clearly, he clearly didn't have the chops live that he supposedly has in his videos. And the audience didn't seem to care. That's one of the things Adam Neely was talking about. Is like the audience doesn't care. The audience just, they don't care at the end of the day. Like his particular group of followers, viewers, watchers, they don't care. You know, it's the guitar community. I mean, I think it's become such a big thing that, yes, his audience is starting to care. Like he pulled, Turra pulled his YouTube page, brands that he had deals with, they pulled his instruments, they pulled all his content off the internet. But the audience that was there, like he showed, Danny Spanko showed the video of Turra and his band playing and Turra not being great that night. And the audience didn't care because they were drinking. They were having a good time. They were laughing, whatever. And again, it goes back to the thing that Rick Beato said. You know, he wasn't good enough to play live. He just wasn't. He couldn't tear it up in Rick's studio the way that he supposedly did in his videos. And that's because not only was he miming, he was faking it. He was faking it and then passing it off as his actual skill set. And I think that's where this diverges for me with comedy. Because unlike with what Giacomo Turra did, you can't take a live stand-up clip and sweeten it in post. You can't. And now that I say it out loud, I'm wrong. I realize I'm wrong because you can. Because you can put laugh tracks in or whatever, you know. But on the day, on the night, because it's comedy and that happens at night, you know, the audience will know. They're there, they're paying attention, they're listening. If they're laughing, they're laughing. If they're not, they're not, you know? And I think that if a comedian were to post a clip from a show where they tanked and then they sweetened it with audience background and then pass it off as if they killed, I feel like comedy audiences are the kind of people who would definitely be like, oh, no, you ate a bag that night. You weren't good that night. Whereas with music audiences, they didn't seem to care. And again, this is why I'm doing this video, because I'm about to embark on this album recording that I'm going to be doing. And this is different because the landscape of comedy and music and the internet has made this industry different. And I've said it before with other comedians and other podcasts that comedy specials used to be special. Meaning HBO, when you got an HBO hour, man, boy, you were about to hit it. Because they didn't just give those away. They did like 4 a year. And it costs then a lot of money. It still costs a lot of money now to do it. I think Pete Lee, you know, just did a video that I shared recently about, you know, these deals that Netflix is giving comedians called 2 for $200, where they get 2 years of exclusive rights. I'm paraphrasing Pete. They get 2 years of exclusive rights to that special, and they give you $200,000 to do it, to shoot it, which sounds like a lot because it is a lot of money. But $200,000, you get 10% to your manager, 10% to your agents. You got to pay your lawyers. Then it costs, Pete said, $80,000 sometimes to shoot these things, because you got to hire the cast, the crew, you got to book the venue. So now some of these comics who are doing these Netflix specials are losing $30,000 or $50,000 on these shows, on these specials. I mean, unless you're Dave Chappelle, who got $60 million to do 4, which he deserved because Dave Chappelle's one of the GOATs. The landscape has changed where comedy specials really aren't special anymore. The last really special I saw was Hannibal Buress's Live in Miami, which he put up on YouTube, which is, God, I don't know why he pulled it down. I don't know if it was like a rights deal or an exclusivity deal or whatever, but boy, that is one of the greatest comedy specials I've seen in forever. With that being said, I don't know who paid for that. You know, it used to be the networks paid for it. The networks paid for it. They paid the comedian, and the comedian would make however much money they would make for that. But we are now in a world, in a landscape, and an environment where literally this is a production studio. Like, I have a Blackmagic camera app on here. If you don't know what Blackmagic is, it's a type of camera system that a lot of people in Hollywood are using. I had a friend who shot his special. He bought 10 iPhones and shot like an hour using his iPhones. So we are in a place where shooting with one of these is doable. It's doable. That's where I'm getting in this is why I'm getting in this whole thing, this whole controversy with Giacomo Turra and miming. Because there's a myth of, I like to call it the myth of the live comedy album, or the myth of like live music albums. 2 of my favorite concert videos of all time, and this will not be a surprise to anybody who watches these videos. Van Halen's Live Without a Net from New Haven, Connecticut. I think it was the first live performance with, live filmed performance with Sammy Hagar as their lead singer. And then the album that really, it defined me as a guitarist and as a person, really, Live Without a Net, or not Live Without a Net, Van Halen, Right Here, Right Now, the live album. It was the album in support of the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge record. And they shot a live performance of that. And I remember watching, the DVD of that. I still have the DVD around here somewhere. And Mitchell, the director, he comes on right away, or straight away, and he says, we shot this over 2 nights with 15 cameras, and they compiled the film, the concert film, into one set. Maybe it was, and this was, 91, the album came out in like 91, 93, something like that. So I was 14. I didn't know that was a thing. For me, as far as I knew, live music albums, one shot, one night. You record it one time, you record that, you get all the audience cheering, you get the band, you get the fire and explosions and the lightning from that one performance in that recording. And I took that into my belief that live comedy albums were live. Now, audio albums, maybe, they probably are. Maybe still. But live concert film is not. And that is different than what Giacomo Turra did with his iPhone. He was recording him playing and passing it off as his performance and what he is capable of doing. But like with live concert albums, comedy concert albums nonetheless, that's not one night. That is not the magic of one performance. For anybody who I'm breaking this secret to, a live comedy taping is never just one. It's 2 or 3 or 4. And the comic is wearing the same clothes and doing the same jokes in the same order. And they are taking the footage from those different performances and then chopping them together to make it look like one live, one-night performance. And maybe it's my naivete, my naivete. I talk for a living. I genuinely talk for a living. Maybe it's me being naive and wanting to believe that it is one performance. Even as a comedian, a professional comedian, I knew that's not the case, but like, I remember, and I still do it, I'll watch a live performance, I'll watch a live concert film of a comic, and I will look at the audience shots or the wide shot where it's, sometimes you get the shot of the comic. Look at the camera, you get the shot of the comic that's like this, and then you get a wide shot of the comic with the audience. And what I will do is I will look at the audience and I'll pick out a guy or a girl or a couple or somebody who's wearing a bright red shirt or something, right? And then I will, the next time I see that shot, that wide shot, I'll look for that person to see if it was from the same night or the same set. Because if you watch, you'll see, like, I did this with Dave Chappelle's specials on Netflix that came out a few years ago. He was like putting one out every year or something. It was great. And his specials are great. Love them. I think he did one I think it was the Palladium here in LA, over on Hollywood Boulevard. And I would watch the audience shots. And if you watch it and you look at the audience shots, you will see, I think there's a like a catwalk that juts out from the stage like this. And like Dave walks to the end of it at some point. And I would look at the audience. And I would see if the couples were the same. I'll see if it was the same guy or girl sitting in those seats. That's that myth of a live comedy taping. It's never one night, because something could happen. You could flub a joke. A joke might not land here, and you want to. And that's the thing now. That's my question. Because Dave Chappelle can do it. You know that Chris Rock can do it. You know that Brian Regan can do it. Everybody has their off nights. Everybody has their off sets. So when you're recording a live performance, what is the expectation of that live performance? Are you expecting it to be one show from one night, the same audience, reacting how they react to that song or that joke? And that's where I am. The question of how I want to do this album, how I want to do this production, because we are in this world, in this landscape where even if Netflix gives you the money to do it, you could lose $30,000 to $50,000, according to Pete Lee, on this, and then you wind up on the road making money to pay for the money that you've lost on this album, this live comedy special. So you have that. You have the potential of like not making money. I've come to terms with the fact that I'm not making money doing this. I've come to terms with the fact that I am probably gonna lose money doing this. I once shot a special with my group, the GIs of Comedy, and we did it in one take. We did it one night, one performance, live. And the only reason we did that was because I paid for it with my own money. There was a Kickstarter, people chucked in money. We got a deal on the theater, but we did not get money for that. And we shot it. And it's on a hard drive on my computer because the network we shot it for decided they didn't want it. And at some point, I plan on releasing it. Probably on YouTube. I just have to talk to lawyers about that. So the question now is this album, this comedy music album that I'm doing, that I want to do. What is the expectation? Is it going to be one night? Is it going to be... It can't. Or can it? Like, This is my rationale. I've been doing the material for this album for the last year and a half. I premiered the whole thing live on April 5th, 2025. The whole album, because I've been doing bits and pieces. I was doing a song here, 2 songs there, 3 songs there, 4 songs there, whatever. In LA, it's hard because you're only doing like at most 20 to 30 minutes. Most nights it's 7 to 10 if you're, a regular. Excuse me. Because I wasn't a road comic. I haven't been in a very long time because I have this radio job and I had my acting career and all this other stuff. So I was putting the album together the way I can. And there are nights, and this is the thing. This is the thing I'm having trouble with. There are nights where these songs are bangers. The songs that we're going to release as singles, the opener and the closer, they work 99.9% of the time. There are nights, though, where the audience is just not having it. And it's not because it's me. It's not because of the material. It's not because of the song. Because I know objectively that the material works. I know objectively. This is getting away from the whole, can I do it live? Yes, I can do it live. Again, I am a mediocre guitarist at best. The songs are funny. As a comedian and a guitarist, I'm very good. As a virtuoso guitarist, I am not. I am the first person to tell you that. I tell everybody all the time, I'm mediocre at best. But as a comedian and a guitar comedian specifically, I'm very good and very funny. Sometimes it just doesn't hit. It's rare. Not to say that, oh, I'm great. Just like these songs, the jokes. I call them songs. They're jokes and songs. I've done them enough times that I'm like, oh, these are really good. So my question is, do I record it all in one night, 2 or 3 sets? Which financially, because I'm doing this on my own, can I do it? Yes. Financially, is it a good idea? I mean, it wouldn't put me in the poorhouse, but I am in the current geoeconomic climate that we are in. Maybe don't burn all of my savings doing this thing. So that's why I'm leaning away from, doing it in the traditional manner of like shooting a 1-hour live comedy album, multiple sets across 2 nights. Even when I produce a TV show, we shot it. We shot 6 or 7 comics a night for 2 nights for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. So I think I am leaning away from the idea of like recording it all in one night and calling it a live performance, a live comedy album. And recording, bringing a sound guy and a video guy with me and shooting different performances and recording them and then stitching them together the way, Mitchell did for the Van Halen album. Because what is the expectation? Is it that it's the same audience listening to all these songs, giving you the reaction that you expect and hope for to these jokes, that I hope and expect for these jokes? Because there are nights that I have great sets. I'm at a point in my career as a comedian where more often than not, I have a good to great set. But every comedian has a night or 2 or 3 or sets where they're just like, what am I doing with my life? And if I do the thing where I shoot the whole album across 2 nights, 4 shows, 2 shows a night, I could stitch them together and make it sound like one live performance. But that would be lying, because it's not, you know? And is it the audience's expectation that it is? And does the audience even care? That's the other thing. Like, I put up stand-up clips, you know, a joke here, a joke there, from sets that have nothing to do with each other. And people don't seem to care. Am I worried about what the expectation is? What the audience's expectation is? Does the audience even care? Do you as an audience care when you're watching a comedy performance, live or otherwise? Because Giacomo's audience live didn't care. But the people who watched it on the internet, they definitely cared. And that's where that separation is for me. Because he clearly, if all the allegations are true and correct, he couldn't do live what he is purported to do in his videos. That's the difference. I can do what I do live. All my stand-up clips are live. I don't have there's no studio stand-up comedy album. There are sketch comedy albums. You know, Sandler. I almost said Chandler. Adam Sandler, his comedy albums were sketches. That's different. That's not stand-up. So what am I worried about? What am I thinking about? What is the thing that I'm concerned about when it comes to recording this live album? Is it the audience expectations? Is it my expectations? I think more than anything, it's my expectation of what a live comedy album is. Because again, growing up, and even as a professional comedian and musician, even though I know it's not true, the Bad Company live album, which is, I think that was one of my first live albums, Bad Company Live. They did a version of Feels Like Making Love that made me feel like I was there. It made me feel like I was in the audience with those tens of thousands of people that they were recording that album for. And again, in hindsight, it might not have been one night. They could have recorded that over multiple nights and stitched it together. So am I stuck in this place where I want to do it to satisfy the thing in my head where I'm like, oh yeah, this is what a live album is? Is that what I want? Is that why I'm stuck in this place? Because obviously it's I can't say obviously because I don't know. But I think I just talked myself into what I want to do. I think I just made the decision. You know, I think, like a crazy man, talking this out to myself, into this camera, to whatever audience is going to watch this or listen to this on a podcast. I think I just made that decision. I think I have to get over whatever belief I have about what a live album is, because the industry has changed, technology has changed, the audiences have changed. And I think I just made the decision. I think I know what I'm going to do. And weirdly, if it weren't for this Giacomo Turra controversy and situation, I wouldn't have done this. I wouldn't have sat here with you for an hour, with myself for an hour, and talked this through and talked this out. So, yeah, I think I just made the decision. And if anything, I have to thank Giacomo Turra for helping me with this. That seems very clickbaity, and I think that's going to be the title of the video. Because people are going to look at it and go, why is he thanking Giacomo Turra? But that's how this works, right? That's how the internet works. That's the changing landscape of this. That is how the industry has changed. That's how comedy and music have changed. And that's how ideas get expressed and exchanged. So, I guess I have to say thank you to Giacomo Turra for giving me a reason to talk through this and figure out how I'm going to record my album. So, there it is. This actually worked. Cheaper than therapy. I mean, maybe not. I had to buy the camera equipment and the switcher and the microphone and the lights and everything. So maybe not cheaper than therapy, but at least I didn't do this in my car or in public. If you stuck around to the end, thank you. Regular episode of the podcast next week. It was going to be my buddy Killjoy this week, but I pushed that back. And I'm going to release a new episode of The Story Behind the Strings on Thursday. So thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please tell a friend. Tell a subscribe, help with the subscribers. And keep watching for my new album, Trantastic, which I've decided how I'm going to be recording this. So thank you to everybody, but mostly Giacomo Turra. Thanks for watching, and let the strings tell your story. Wait, that's not how this episode ends. That's not this show. That's the other show. Thanks for watching. Turn the laughs up to 11.